throughout my adult life, I have advocated the inclusion of those who have been excluded. I've been a strong advocate of that. I advocated that in college, and I advocated that in my adult life. And I certainly practiced that during my tenure at EEOC. I felt, for example, that there were many opportunities to include minorities and women and individuals with disabilities in our workforce. And I took every occasion to do that. In the Senior Executive Service Program, the top level of government managers, our record is superb. The efforts that I was able to achieve in agreements, scholarships for minorities and women across the country, colleges and universities, programs, internship programs, mentor programs, stay-in-school programs, et cetera. And I think that many of us of goodwill and many of us who, though we don't necessarily share the same approach, agree with that goal, that we have to include individuals who've been left out for so long. The difficulty comes, how far do you go without being unfair to others who have not discriminated, unfair to the person who's excluded? And at that range, I thought, and again, this was the policy position that I advocated, that it was appropriate to draw the line at preferences and goals and timetables and quotas. I also felt that those approaches, the objectionable approaches, had their own consequences. And that is, I felt that they had the tendency of undermining the self-esteem and dignity of the recipients. That is, again, something that others can debate, but I thought it was a valid point of view, and that those approaches, if we went too far, actually could be harmful to the very individuals whom we all care so much about. But I am very firmly for programs to include those who have been excluded. That has been a passion of mine throughout my adult life.
In describing your views on racial quotas, unless I've missed it, you have not anchored them based on constitutional arguments, but anchored them in your own feelings about what makes sense, what makes a reason. Yet I know there's the Plessy versus Ferguson dissent that you've referred to, or at least it's been attributed to you that you found some interest in Justice Harlan's dissent there in that case. It includes this quote: "But in view of the Constitution, in the eye of the law, there is in this country no superior dominant ruling class of citizens. There is no caste here. Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law." Now, my recollection is I did finish saying I understand your reluctance to rule on cases in advance. But do you attribute your concern over racial quotas to reading of the Constitution as well?
I think, Senator, in the appropriate circumstances, we all are concerned with the underlying value of fairness that is expressed in our Constitution as well as in our statutes. But I'd like to make one comment with respect to that quote, and I think it's an important comment, that we have to remember that even though the Constitution is colorblind, our society is not, and that we will continue to have that tension.
Thank you. Judge Thomas, I bring this subject up not to cause you personal concern, but because it's become part of the debate over your nomination. I preface that way because it is not normally the type of thing that I guess I would bring up at a hearing of this kind. But one of the charges that has been brought against you in this nominating process is that you benefited by quotas or affirmative action, but do not support them. I guess the question is directly in entry to Yale. Were you part of an affirmative action quota? Were you part of a racial quota in terms of entering that law school?
Senator, I have not during my adult life or during my academic career been a part of any quota. The effort on the part of Yale during my years there was to reach out and open its doors to minorities whom it felt were qualified. And I took them at their word on that. And I have advocated that very kind of affirmative action. And I've done the exact same thing during my tenure at EEOC. And I would continue to advocate that throughout my life.